Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in today's video, I'm going to be revealing my secret tech balance druid build that has enabled me to catapult myself back to the top of the ladder after getting stuck for quite a long time and being frustrated and not really liking the gameplay of the considered meta build. I was able to concoct something that is more suited towards my playstyle. It's a lot more fun, and it works at any rating bracket, and it works in any PvP bracket. If you want to play Shuffle, if you want to play Battlegrounds, it's going to be basically an all-arounder, really inclusive specialization to any bracket or rating. My chat was trying it out for my stream yesterday, and they were absolutely liking it on their playthrough, so I can definitely recommend it to you with my own personal experience, as well as the testimonials of those players in my chat, and it's made Balanced Druid a lot more fun. So the first thing to talk about is going to be the talents. In the talent trees, we are running the Keeper of the Grove, and we are playing what I call a Weaver build. And the main reason it's called the Weaver build is the talent Star Weaver, which is going to make Star Surge have a chance to make our Starfall free, and our Starfall have a chance to make our Star Surge free. So this is going to be a build that focuses on weaving between Starfalls and Star Surges. It focuses on dot procs, as I am running the Mushroom proc with the Sunseeker Mushroom. I'm running Crashing Star, which is when shooting stars, they have a chance to call down a Crashing Star, and Hail of the Stars, so that when we cast a free Star Surge or Starfall, we will get Solstice, which is granted to us from Touch of the Cosmos, which is what we're going to be getting when we have instant Starfires while we're in Eclipse. So basically, we're just procking a truck ton of free Starfalls, stacking those up, and weaving Star Surges in between them as they proc. Well, we proc down Crashing Stars, we proc down Full Moons, we proc out Mushrooms that explode on people at the same time. So it's a really fun playstyle. I've really enjoyed it, and it's actually been really effective, I think particularly in Shuffle and Battleground Blitz. On the Druid class side, I've been preferring to run Forest Walk over that of Feline Swiftness, just because it gives you the extra 8% healing received. Obviously, Moonkin is really squishy, and it can be really tough to survive, so I've been opting for this. It seems to be really effective at enabling my healers to actually be able to pick me up a bit more, as opposed to the Feline Swiftness talent over here. But of course, you could flex these talents around. It's these three talents mostly that you flex around, which is Ursoc's Spirit, Matted Fur, and the Forest Walk. So if you wanted to get D-Curse, for example, you could drop out some. If you didn't think the healing received, you want bear form talents against physical damage, you would be dropping out something like this to be able to get D-Curse against something like a Warlock. And it's basically these three talents that you flip out and flip around. So if I wanted to get Rake Stun, maybe there are like no melee attackers, I wanted full mobility, I'd drop these two, and I'd be able to put them over here into the top left. And this is going to make me really fast. This is going to be like your speedy go-go Druid build onto this side. So you have the D-Curse build against with like a Warrior and a Warlock. You'd want the bear talents. If it wasn't a Warrior Warlock, you'd probably want the Forest Walk. Or you can run my kind of neutral build, which is just, you don't need D-Curse, but this is going to make you kind of as tanky as possible, given how high the damage is. If you really wanted to go like Omega tanky, you may want to opt out for this. This would be like ultra safe, but generally I feel like Moonkin has to constantly move to survive. So if you're standing still for too long, it's not going to be a really good exchange. But yeah, just these three talents right here that I've just taken out, you flex those around to get D-Curse or Feline Swiftness, depending on if you want to move faster against melee attackers. That's generally what I'm doing as far as flexing those. And I haven't really been changing the talents too much onto this side. So let's just talk about talent or stats for a little bit. So obviously we're going to go haste and versatility. This doesn't change no matter what build you're playing on Balanced Druid. Those are going to be your main primary stats to go for. You can see them here with haste enchants, haste focus, versatility secondary. I do take some conquest pieces to get my versatility a bit higher, just because again you're really squishy as a Balanced Druid, but I have kind of like a mix of crafted gear and conquest gear. If you go all conquest gear, I think your clone cast speed is going to be a little bit too slow, so having some crafted pieces weaved in is going to be a good idea. I don't run the 4-piece. I just don't think that it's worth it. You're already going to be like really hard pressed to not find astral power with this build, so I don't really to run it. But I am thinking about changing my embellishments, mostly because this one doesn't reset its cooldown between rounds in solo shuffle, and seemingly it doesn't get cooldown reduction from having sockets either. When I look at the debuff, it says 4 minutes every time, even though obviously I have sockets on every single slot that you can get sockets. This one, like, it's saved me sometimes in like the first round of a shuffle, but then it doesn't proc again for like 4 more rounds because the cooldown doesn't reset. So it's like it's a little bit hit or miss there. I was considering switching my embellishments away from these ones that are focused more around tankiness to basically the Algari sockets, just proc extra damage, because it's just going to be more proc damage, which suits with the kind of playstyle that we were doing with the talent tree. So if you're wondering about that, it's mostly just laziness or cheapness as far as wanting to like switch my embellishments, but I am seriously considering swapping these over to the Algari gems instead. But haste versatility is the main go-to. PvP talents, I'm always running Alkin Adept and I'm running Moonkin Aura. Alkin Adept just makes Cyclone actually able to be pressed. Moonkin Aura is just really good with the Weaver build because we're going to get passive crit, which is going to amplify the damage of all of our build as well as our allies. And then Thorns is kind of the flex talent. So if I'm running against like multiple melee DPS, I take Thorns. This is going to be really effective damage. If I'm running against multiple casters, I take High Winds to get the extra clone range so that I can clone them without needing to overextend. And if you're fighting something like a Fury Warrior or a Marksmanship Hunter, you can run Fairy Swarm, which will enable you to basically neutralize their damage during their big cooldown windows, which is very important. And if you're just feeling like, if you're fighting somebody who spam Dispelling, which I have seen a couple of times, you can run Dying Stars. So if you're playing like a Destrolock or a Shadow Priest, healers really spam Dispel against that. Dying Stars can be really good, but this is kind of your flex talent, and those are the situations that I'm flexing them in. If you're in Battlegrounds, you could probably run Starburst. And if you just want to have fun, you can run Starburst as well. But sometimes it just doesn't do any damage for me. That's why I was finding Thorns to be better if there's melee. And I was finding kind of the clone range to be better for control and limiting the damage of our opponents. But now when we're just talking about damage, main goal is to get dots on everything. So we can Sunfire right away. And then we can Trent and Incarn. And we can spam Starfall. And the reason we don't use Moonfire is because our Trents will put Moonfire up. You can see we're getting Star Surge procs whenever it lights up. So we're just spamming Starfalls until we get a Star Surge proc. And then we can go back to spamming Wrath whenever we've run out of the ability to cycle it. We're casting Wrath in Eclipse, which obviously has a chance to give us even more free Star Surges. So it's just all about procking as much as possible. I'm honestly kind of getting unlucky in this kind of like run through of DPS as far as procs are concerned. I think we just got like a double proc right there, but you can see it, like you're able to feed and weave together a lot of this, which gives you a decent amount of cleave damage as well as single target burst, which is what I like about it. It's a flexible build where you can do AoE. And you could, if you wanted to, you could just focus only single target. You could spam Star Surge. Let's say you got a rogue on your team, and then you just use the free Starfalls when they happen instead of the other way around. So you can like basically flex your playstyle in the middle of the game. It makes me feel like I'm doing damage outside of just the Trent windows as well, maintaining the Starfall stacks rolling through and getting as much effective damage as possible. So I've really liked this build. That's kind of the breakdown for the damage rotation. You can see that's really not complicated. You just spam Starfall and Eclipse until you get Star Surge to light up. You press Trents and Incarn at the same time, and that's what you're trying to do. But let's look at the gameplay now, because obviously in the arena, it's a little bit more than just doing damage. So let's try and get this kind of like nailed down pat as to what we were trying to do. So we got all melee DPS. This is usually the most common challenging situation that I've seen for kind of novice level balance druids. So we're going to start in stealth. We want to kind of open away from where the rogue is going to sap our team, and we want to try and crowd control the paladin. So my opener is a root solar beam. This paladin's running judgment dispel, so you got to be a bit careful with paladins to do this. You need to dot them before root beaming them, so they RNG their chance to get out of the beam, or just use the beam to kick them. Now we're going to use stampede very early. We're going to kite away from the rogue. We want to limit the uptime of our opponents as much as possible, and we're going to use thorns to deter the warrior. We're pulling the warrior out into the corner. When you fight multiple melee DPS, you pull them into the open corners of the map. We pop Incarn Trance for spamming Starfall. We're using Star Surges when it lights up. This is going back to our damage rotation guide that I just did a second ago. Maintaining dots on multiple targets, spamming Starfalls, Star Surge procs when it lights up. It gets a bit complicated, and this is why it's kind of a fun build, is like when you're deciding when you need to use a proc Star Surge versus a Starfall. And you can see that we're creating a lot of pressure across 3 targets by pulling melee DPS into the corner, which exposes the paladin to our line of sight so we can attack them. Now we're using Typhoon to try and knock the warrior. We're trinketing out of a Stormbolt here. We're trying to limit uptime. Fury Warriors can basically solo you. It's kind of risky for me to run Thorns in this matchup and not disarm, especially with a Death Knight. Choosing to off-heal myself during the Smoke Bomb, and this is where Solar Beam to kick a cast would be better. I can interrupt their Repentance as opposed to trying to root Solar Beam and then they can just Judgment their way out. We're proccing Mushrooms. We're kind of focusing on single target here because the rogue is getting low, so I chose to use Star Surge twice, and that's what I like. There's more decision-making in this build. Now they're all kind of rotting, so I'm going back to Starfall because I want to focus on getting 3 targets low in this position with their current health pools and make it difficult for the paladin to decide where they need to allocate their cooldowns. So they've lay on hands the rogue, they've bopped the warrior, they're spreading their cooldowns. I need to start cutting away, but look how many procs I have right now. I got a free Starfall, I got a free Star Surge there as well. We're able to output a lot more damage even just outside of the Trent window, which makes the gameplay a lot more fun and a lot more oppressive for your opponents, because we can see they're just really struggling to deal with this. I can slip a Cyclone through thanks to the Alcan Adept that forces Divine Shield. I'm going to jump away from the rogue who's critically low with cheat death. I'm into a bop now, so I can go back offensive. I can maybe look for some Cyclones at low health, but at that point we're already basically steamrolling them. We're knocking them down. It's a really fun build. I like the decision making in this build way more than the decision making in the other build. And in this lobby, we got a warrior now, so we're starting in stealth. I'm getting dots up before I solar beam, but now the paladins used freedom, which is that orange icon, which means we can't root them. So we're gonna have to hold the solar beam. We wild charge the death grip, which is an important reaction you need to train against death knights. It's just instantly wild charge backwards when you get death gripped. And we sneak into Cyclone. We're gonna Trent Incarn, spam out Starfall. Actually, no, I'm Star Surging because the rogue was in a clone, and I wanted to single target pressure the warrior with the warrior. The warrior does mostly single target damage, so I wanted to pressure down with the warrior. But as soon as I can get away, I'm probably going to go back to spamming Starfall because I want to get cleave damage going and make it tough for the paladin to heal and where they need to put their beacon of light, basically, because there'll be one target that doesn't have a beacon, and that target will feel the pain of your AoE build. And paladins also have kind of a spirit-like effect where they take some of the damage that their allies take, so it's really easy to build rot pressure against a paladin, which is why I even more so like this build in this type of situation with paladins being so popular. We get a Cyclone of the Death Knight, try and get into Eclipse here. Well, you can cast on Cyclone targets. It doesn't do damage, but it'll get you into Eclipse. This is a good way if enemies are just line of sighting you. We get gripped in, we wild charge away with Thorns up, and we're just pulling them around the corner away from the enemy paladin and trying to make it difficult for him to keep up and keeping our distance, because we are really, going to struggle to survive if they stay on us. So this is why we're trying to keep regrowth on ourselves for that Forest Walk talent. Really important with the Keeper of the Grove, because you get free regrowths that are instant after you spend a certain amount of astral power. So whenever your regrowth lights up, you want to get that regrowth on yourself for the movement speed and the healing bonus, so your ally is able to heal you. We'll knock the Death Knight away from ourselves. We force lay on hands on the rogue. Now I'm just single targeting the Death Knight here because no one else is in my line of sight, so Starfall wouldn't be as effective. So I'm kind of just focusing a little bit more on that. We get a cycle on the paladin who's panicking, right? He's trying to wrap around the corner. How's he going to heal the Death Knight? But the rogue's on this side dying, and this is the kind of chaos that I really like that this build is able to create, that the other build is way too predictable. It's just Trent Incarn and they know one target's getting one shot. This one's a little bit more of a slow ramp, but it becomes really difficult for them to recover. We go over Solar Beam here, forcing the Divine Shield from the paladin, but it's not enough. We're able to crack down on the Death Knight, finishing with the Blade Storm. And you can see we're able to do a remarkable amount of damage even while being attacked with this build, with this type of playstyle where we're able to kind of just stay away from our opponents. Now we got a round here with the rogue. They've sapped the paladin. I pull out into the open corner of the map. I bash the warrior off myself in the opener. Trent Incarn, time to spam some Starfalls and use the Star Surge procs when they light up to try and get as much cleave damage in our Moonkin aura going as fast as possible. Kind of getting gripped around and destroyed in the opener here, so we're going to just trinket the first Stormbolt that hits us. Kind of important against one of these cleave comps that isn't like a burst-based cleave, it's a sustained damage cleave. You want to trinket during your cooldowns to maximize your damage. We solar beam out of the kidney shot with dots. He gets lucky. The judgment dispels the root anyways. We stun him, but it's on DR, and I'm just pulling them now behind the pillar away from the paladin, but I don't want to line my own paladin with how much pressure I'm taking, maintaining the instant regrowth. And I use a dash here with a Blessed Protection to line of sight. And whenever you're really low like this, your healer's in CC, you want to use regrowth. And what I'm realizing after watching this back is I should just use solar beam only to stop repentance in this lobby, as opposed to using it as like a blanket, unless it's like a game-winning solar beam, like it's the last crowd control we need, just because I'm almost dying every time the enemy paladin gets a repentance. We're in Bear Farm Frenzy. We'll root up the enemy attackers. Really important to use mass root on pet classes when they empower their pet. So the Death Knight there empowered his pet to be like a monstrosity. We'll use mass entangle on it. This build's also pretty good at just killing pets. I think we killed the Death Knight pet right there. So there's a lot of hunters, there's a lot of demo locks, and you can multi-dot them Starfall and sometimes kind of just like cleave down their pet and remove that. So now we got Smoke Bomb. I'm focusing single target here, and this is why I love this build. You got different playstyles at any moment in the game. I was spamming Star Surges, but they CC us. We couldn't finish them in that moment of time. Now I see the Paladin and Hammer Justice, no trinket. This is where we are going to blanket beam. He tries to Judge Dispel. He actually gets lucky on the 1 of 3. That would have been a game over moment right there, but then he gets repentanced by our Paladin, and we have just so much CC as Moonkin Holy Paladin. It's like one of my favorite combos to play at the moment. It just is really oppressive with the amount of control that you can dish out. And the Blessed Protections are really nice for keeping you alive against melee attackers. So I really like this balanced druid build. I ended up going 6-0 in this lobby, just to speed us through this, but it's basically the same thing through the rest of these rounds, where we're just focusing on kiting away, finding opportunities to pull enemies in the open and blast them down with massive amounts of AoE damage. I just wanted to showcase it, highlight it to you, that there are balanced druid specializations that you can make work at any range of experience in pretty much any bracket of PvP, and especially if you're kind of bored of the meta chasing, just like cooldown one-shot version of Boomkin, this build does work. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. If you did, make sure to hit it with a thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.